Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the Viking Chats podcast. And I'm delighted to be joined today by Joe Bourne and Cla Yates. Ladies,
Hello.
thank you for
Hello.
joining me in the cocktail dungeon of Shoreditch.
It's fabulous.
Thank you for the invite.
So, for anyone living under a rock who has not crossed your paths as yet, would you mind giving us just a little bit of an intro for each of you of who you are, what you do?
I'm Joe Bourne, and I have a company called Impact, which I've had for 11 years. I spend my time working with agents, businesses, all things team building, culture, leadership, state agency, background, 35 plus years in the industry. Basically, I love helping people. That's what I really enjoy doing. So building teams, working with teams, throw it at me and we'll see where it lands.
Right, so I'm a freelance trainer as well. I specialise in customer experience, that's a primary thing, but also showing people how they can do something. There's an awful lot of training out there that shows people the technical side of it, but people walk away still unable to actually use that training in a practical way. So I do it in a light-hearted, humorous way because I believe that people remember stuff when they've laughed. So the biggest fool in the room
People remember how you make them feel.
Absolutely, and the biggest fool in the room is nearly always me, which is great fun, and I genuinely love it. I'm ex-agency, as Joe is. Found my career in training through a series of unfortunate accidents, but ended up being very fortunate. And so I work with agents and lawyers and suppliers. So quite a broad church, if you like, of people. But that's me.
Great. So, look, let's dive straight in. I think training is such an interesting part of our industry. I think we all know it's talked about a lot. It's not done enough. It's certainly not done well enough. So to start, a lot of people fall into agency. I think that is definitely a common theme with a lot of the conversations that we have with people. It's quite rare that you come across the likes of Megan, who's, ever since she was 5 or 6 years old, had this aspiration of following her mum's footsteps and pursuing a career in real estate. But I think that is definitely not the norm for our industry. And a lot of people, much like myself, fell into it for whatever reason, unsure what career path to follow, or a change of careers, or a change of circumstances, whatever it is. And the low barriers to entry in our industry are actually, as much as they get lamented, and we've got a lot of conversation around ROPA, there is also an argument that also actually allows people to come into the industry quite easily, right or wrong. Now, something we've always found with Base is actually we've found, as you guys know, a huge part of what we do is about the service and the experience that our customers have. And that was always our objective when we started Base. It wasn't about how many deals we were going to do or, really from that business mindset. But because of that, we hire quite a lot out of the industry. Quite a lot of the people we have come into our business do not come from working in another agency. Because we find our culture is so different to 99% of agents. It's very hard to kind of either unpick that or they come into an environment that doesn't feel like the agency world that they know. But also we find certain skill sets and unsurprisingly, and you hear this across a lot of businesses, we've hired a lot of people out of hospitality.
100%.
A lot of people out of hospitality. What are your kind of thoughts on, people coming into the industry as an employer, whether you're an owner director or a branch manager for a larger business? What do you guys kind of see as it's allowed? What do you guys see as kind of essential traits that are really good kind of core underpinnings to bring into the industry?
I think picking up on what you've said, when I was I was Connell Sequence for the 25 years, a large part of my team, and I ran 12 offices in the north, came from hospitality, retail, travel industry, transferable skills, so people skills. The stuff that people talk about as soft skills, But actually, they're the real core skills.
Yeah.
They're the backbone of good estate agency, good teams, good leadership. So listening skills, the ability to communicate, the ability to have a conversation. So I think taking somebody who hasn't got agency experience actually isn't a problem. For me, some of the bigger problems were people who came with preconceived ideas, to your point, that, well, we did it this way where I was. Well, you've left there to come to us.
Yeah.
And now I want to do that way. So I think that's a massive part. I think attitude, somebody's how they want to work, and their willingness to learn. I think you can work with that and you can build on that. And I think that's a massive part of certainly the work that I do. And I think the same for Clare is absolutely about bringing out those skills.
Well, you can't teach someone to give a shit, can you?
No, you can't.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
yeah.
you can't.
Well,
No.
It's cut straight.
Yeah.
It's cut straight to
Yeah,
it early on. You can't.
No.
There is no training course in the world where you convince someone who doesn't give a shit to all of a sudden.
No, it's about
skip it
personal.
down.
It's about belief. If they don't believe they can do it and they don't want to do it,
And if they don't believe in the product, if they don't believe in the
Absolutely.
service,
No.
I think that's something else. I remember. Again, this is one of these kind of agency conversations that is always going to stick with me. I remember being at a networking event probably about 10 years ago now, sat opposite an agent who was bemoaning the dropping of fees, and he was sat there going, well, my two biggest competitors have both dropped their fees. And I was like, right. And he's like, so, well, we all do exactly the same job. So I'm going to have to, and I just went, sorry, I beg your pardon? He was like, yeah, we all do exactly the same thing. So I can't charge any more than they charge. And I was like, sorry, you don't genuinely believe that you do a better job than your competitors. I'm like, no wonder you're not getting a better fee. Right?
and there's your starting point.
And
Isn't it? If you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe in what you're doing and you don't believe in your product, how are you going to go out there and say, I'm worth it?
Yeah.
How are you going to say, I'm going to get you the best price, I'm going to get you the best deal, whatever that looks like, if you don't actually believe you're worth that? So to say you can't differentiate between me and somebody else shows you don't understand your value.
Yeah.
And that's got to be a massive part.
So there's a slide that people have seen me put up frequently of a very grumpy looking cat with a sign saying, I hate people. And then I say, do you know somebody who shouldn't have a phone?
and
everybody does.
Or nods profusely.
So why do you put them on the phone?
Yeah.
There are some brilliant administrators.
Yeah. They can be they can still be a fabulous part of the team. Just
don't put them in front of
talk to
anybody.
customers.
But the thing is that we are the blind data rangers. We are the dating agency.
Yeah.
We match people every day with property. We match landlords and tenants. We match sellers and buyers, and we do it with research. And if you haven't got time for people, you shouldn't be in the business at all. But the other thing is, when we get to our fees, this is really silly. It's like saying all hotels are the same.
Yeah.
Everyone's providing you with a bed and a
because it's
wardrobe.
a bed and four
Yeah.
walls
Yeah.
and ceiling. Yeah.
The experience, and I was walking past Art Hotel on the way down
Yeah.
here, and I was looking at booking that for a theatre trip for us to go away for the weekend. There's no way that Art Hotel would say that they're worth the same as
the Holiday Inn across the road.
Exactly. And they'd say it's the way we make you feel when you stay, and it's all the stuff that goes with it. Estate agents can do the same.
Yeah.
But they think of it as a popularity contest rather than a fee contest. So an agent that's got, look at all the properties we've got listed, doesn't tell me that they're better.
No.
It says they're cheap.
Well, and also I think, the volume thing, I think that's such a huge point that agents, big and small, get hung up on. I think once you become a big agent, of course, fair enough, that is part of your play. You need to leverage your kind of scale of business to kind of present in that format. But I think far too many independents get far too caught up on volume.
It should be.
Quantity over quality.
Yeah, but
right?
you don't want it to be on a huge conveyor belt with 50 properties in a window and 3 negotiators. What kind of service are those sellers going to get?
Yeah.
And it's that whole thing of just thinking hard about what do we want to be? How much do we want to earn? What should people be saying about our business behind our back?
Yeah.
And how do we make sure that everybody lives that? And that's why hospitality does it so well, because you're trained to pour a pint. You're never put behind a bar or on reception without some training.
Yeah.
And yet we put our least trained members of staff, in fact, our newbies, on the front desk with
right
a
at
phone
the front line. Yeah.
where the red carpet
and
is.
kind of figure it out,
Yeah.
learn by mistakes, but it's our poor customers and
Yeah.
Yeah.
applicants and whatever else you want to call them that get that myriad of experiences. And as we know, right, that 50% of leads, that unbelievable stat that seems immeasurably almost set in stone, you know, that 50% of leads that goes unanswered or properly unserviced, or, you know, and we've all seen the calls where salespeople aren't asking about if they've got a property to sell or if they've got a mortgage in place, or, you know, whatever the priority is, but they're also the flip side, robotically going through those questions. Sorry, I can't go further if you don't give me an email and you don't confirm you've got a mortgage in place, and blah, blah. No, I can't give you more details about that property until I know your blood type and your star sign and your last 3 dating preferences, you know.
Are you on our mailing list at all?
Yeah.
Are you on our mailing list?
Yeah.
Are you registered? But that goes back, doesn't it, to what you said at the beginning about taking people that aren't necessarily from the industry, people who can communicate, people who want a conversation. If you ask somebody why they want to be an estate agent, say, oh, it's because I like houses. Well, actually, it's probably the wrong conversation. You need to like people. So to your...
Yeah, if you like houses, go and be an architect or an interior designer.
Absolutely. If you like meeting people, helping people, solve problems for people, and you like talking to people, then that's pretty much sorted. You can do the rest. But if you can't have a conversation with somebody, you're never going to get past that 50% of leads that don't go on.
But again, we come back to hospitality, right? You think about, you know, you go into a restaurant or a bar, and it's that difference between the person who goes, oh, what do you want? And you go, a beer and a wine, and they instantly pour you a pint of Stella and a glass of the house Sauvignon. Or the one who goes, oh, well, you know, what kind of beer do you like? Are you more of a pale ale or a real ale person? You know, we do have a house, but actually, what kind of white are you? Oh, we've got a really nice, you know, don't worry, it's not too expensive, but, you know.
Yeah.
And it's that experience you get, right? So when you're ordering the food, oh, you know, have you thought that's a really nice side to have with that dish? And those are the things.
Yeah.
They're still just fundamentally doing their job.
I think people sometimes think, certainly in agency, if they're asking those questions, they're being intrusive or they're asking too much information, as opposed to if you're asking why and why again and why again, it's to help. And if I can help you the most,
as long as you're listening, as long as you're not asking that question just to tee up another question.
100%. And that's the other thing, isn't it? Are you actually listening? And that's my big, you know, soapbox thing about, do people listen to actually hear, or do they listen to respond or to fix? Yeah. And that's a big piece.
I mean, I do struggle with that sometimes because the way my brain works. But I remember my first boss in agency, and she said, you've got 2 ears, 1 mouth.
Yes.
And there's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, if you're talking more than you're listening, you're doing it wrong.
Absolutely. And if you're listening and you're doing something else, and we all like to think we're good at multitasking.
Because you're not listening.
But we're half typing an email while we're half listening to somebody. Well, we're not really there, are we? We're sort of in Outlook and listening. Yeah. But we're not really listening. Are we, Claire?
What did you just say?
You're right. The weather in Corfu is lovely this year.
Anyway, back to my holiday.
Yes.
Back to my holiday. But actually, the travel industry is the best analogy because we will deliberately pay more to get a better experience. Yeah. We look for 5-star.
You said hotels and holidays. It is the perfect.
It's the same with flights.
It's the perfect example.
It's the same with flights. You say, okay, so I'm going to done your short distance. I can go cheap and cheerful on that flight. Long haul, you go, what's the best seat I can get on the plane, and what can I afford? And then you start thinking, it's a huge amount of money. I'm not going to take a risk with a low cost provider, and then and so on. And the older you get, the wiser you get on this as well, and you're less willing to put up with. So people said, which is the safest agent to go to, which is the agent with the best success rate of selling my property, which agent makes property look gorgeous. And I just don't understand why we would ever put ourselves in the same as everybody else, really.
I think the other thing is as well, I think because everyone is seemingly so obsessed with property all the time. You can't go to a dinner party without someone finding out you're an agent and then asking how much their nan's cottage in Aberystwyth is worth. But I think there's also this presumption that the customer knows more than they do. Particularly if they've sold a couple of houses before, if they've been around the block a few times and they've been through a few properties. Oh, they've sold a couple of properties before. They know what the game is like. You don't know what that experience was like. You don't know what that circumstance was or anything else. To presume that people kind of expect the same outcome. I mean, I've always used cars. That's always been in a similar way to holidays and hotels. I've always been like, well, fundamentally, whether you're driving a 30-year-old Skoda or the latest £1 million Rolls Royce, they still get you from A to B. You've still got a 70-mile-per-hour limit on the motorway, but like you said, it's how comfortably you get there, how reliably
How
you get
important
there.
is your journey?
How important is your journey?
But the thing that I find the most shocking is we're custodians of people's front door keys and burglar alarm code. We put strangers in other people's houses either to have a walking tour or to live in. Would you seriously give your front door key and burglar alarm code and the privacy and security of your home to the cheapest agent in town?
Isn't it? This is one thing I've always found utterly fascinating about real estate is you could stop someone in the street and say that, give me 20 quid and in a week I'll send you 100 quid. And I guarantee you 98% of the people that would stop that you'd stop would go, I'm not giving you fucking 20 quid.
Yeah.
Like, they would want to know, are you FCA regulated? Have you done this? What's your company registration number? Is there insurance? What's the money returns policy? But walk into their 300, 500 million pound home and undercut everybody with bold assertions about the fact you're going to get better price than anyone, quicker than anyone, cheaper than anyone. And more often than not, here are the keys. Where do I sign?
And in lettings, they're putting their money in your bank account.
Not just that. Now with the level of compliance as well. And as we know, whilst agents have an increasing level of culpability, as the landlord, you're never off the hook now.
No.
So, we're dealing with a landlord at the moment who has self-managed for 20 odd years, thought she was doing a good job, but because of the Renters' Rights Act, decided now is the time. The only thing she had in place was a gas safety certificate on each flat. Deposits weren't registered, no EICR. Smoke alarm in one flat's broken, no carbon monoxide in the other one. Because of all of that, she doesn't have a property licence on either one. And she's facing over... If the council rocked up tomorrow morning, she would be facing over £200,000 per property in fines and rent repayment orders. And yet... that is someone who decided, I know enough, and went through a very popular online letting solution.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And they believe that they've kind of, it's all done.
And this is the thing, isn't it? Everybody thinks they're all right until something goes wrong. And that's that whole point, isn't it? Again, when you go back to fees, we're selling a service. And of course, you can't touch a service until you've experienced it. Yeah. So the big thing to demonstrate fees always is I used to say in the nice pub, you've got to touch a client 3 times before they trust you.
What got me into trouble last night?
But because they're buying that service, they've got to start to believe. So if you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. So when they spoke to you, you'll send a message, you'll email, you'll send a WhatsApp, you'll send something to them. So they start to see it. They start to understand what they're going to get. It's not like going out and buying a pair of shoes and you can pick them up and see what you think about them. It's an
impossible standard to hold yourself to. Yeah. But it's a well-known quote. I remember it was shared at EA Masters a few years ago. I can't remember who the original quote is from, but how you do everything is how you do anything.
Yes.
And it's an impossible standard to hold yourself to, because we do also fuck up as human beings. Absolutely. And that's fine. But it is that thing of, if you promise the world and then the first 3 things you said you were going to do, you either don't do or you do them late or you do them poorly.
It's that trust.
Don't be surprised that the rest of the service is going to follow that exact same path.
But going back to what you're saying about training, the idea that we take people's alarm codes and security details with no training and say, how difficult can it be? The idea that we don't have to regularly train. The idea that something that we went on 20 years ago...
That you're not required to have a criminal record check.
No. Well, you kind of are. The general public don't realise that we should be.
Yeah.
It's on the list, but we just don't do it. So,
yes.
But the idea that we could talk about the fact I don't need any training. Can you tell me an athlete that would say I don't need any training? Can you tell me anybody else? A surgeon that would say, I don't need any training, I've been doing this for 25 years.
We'll walk into the London Stock Exchange. You go, move over, boys.
Yeah, a
Give me
solicitor.
£1 million worth of assets. I'll show you how it's done.
The solicitor who hasn't retrained since they qualified 30 years ago and still loves his fax machine.
Yeah.
You don't hear any other business bragging about the fact that they don't spend any money on training, or that they only do it when they've got some money in the bank, but the rest of the time they'll just fly by the seat of their pants. It's an embarrassment, actually. Now, it's not for us to sell more training. There aren't enough of us, actually, to fulfil the need. If everybody said, let's go and train, there aren't enough industry trainers to deliver that.
I don't think it's a secret that there is a big chunk of our industry that needs to figure out a way to do more. There is, as frustrating and disappointing as it is at times, there's a reason why our industry, profession, whatever you want to call it, is an industry, I suppose, at the moment, has the rather terrible reputation that it does. It's because so many people have had such a horrendous experience, and it is so personal. Moving away from the letting side, people moving homes, there is so much tied into that. And when you actually move away from the transaction itself and you look at the reason why people are moving, jobs or babies or losses or looking after a loved one or whatever it is, there is often so much other emotion and stress and everything else tied into that. And on top of that, you're doing someone's biggest financial transaction for most people. It's it's something fascinating. It was something I found fascinating. Do you remember it's probably about 10 years ago now, Charlie Lambden, used to be Charlie Wright, he tried to set up something called CLA, which was the Charter of Independent Estate and Letting Agents. And it was all about championing what independent agents do and raising their profile, blah, blah, blah. And there was a fascinating part in that journey where he put together a board of us. And I actually thought he did a really good job, because we were all independents, but he didn't do the London-centric thing. I think there was myself and Peter Weatherall, for London, but then there was Perry Power, we had guys from across the whole country. I don't think anyone had more than like 3 offices, but all successful in our own right, but much smaller independent operations, but everyone well respected. I think everyone there had won some sort of award at something, but I will never forget when Charlie then went out on the road to start kind of drumming up interest in terms of agents actually signing on board to come on board with this thing. And I remember about 2 weeks into it, Charlie called this sudden emergency meeting and he said, look, we need to have a chat. And we were all like, interesting. And he called this meeting and he said, interesting feedback. Said, a lot of the agents I've been speaking to, they're struggling to keep their doors open. Every month, it's like, Jesus Christ, how are we going to be able to pay to keep the lights on, pay to keep the doors open? Are we still going to be able to keep the whole team? And they don't feel that who is on the board is a fair representation of who they are in the industry. You are all too successful, too reputable. And I remember us all just looking around the room going, sorry, they want to be represented by people that are struggling to keep the doors open. I was like, isn't this about championing the fact that independent agents do this incredible job and you can get this incredible level of service and expertise and customer care, and you can do the things that a corporate can never do. You can give that truly truly personal curated experience, depending on your agency and what market you operate in. But I found it absolutely fascinating, and that was kind of one of the big things that kind of derailed that whole CLA movement that he was trying to set up. Was it all kind of fell apart over that, because it was like, okay, but so who's gonna head up this board, and if they're struggling to keep their doors open.
And that in yourself, if they're struggling to keep the doors open, surely that's the point that says we need to invest in development to how do we get better fees? How do we get our team slicker, more able to answer those 50% of inquiries that aren't being answered? How do we grow?
Yeah.
But yeah, we can't afford to do that. And that's one of the biggest things I think we probably find is business owners or directors or whoever are responsible for saying, oh yeah, we'll pay for some training or whatever. They want an instant ROI.
Well, and how
do you measure that? But then do they look at the retention. They look at how people feel about their role. How do they feel? Do they feel more confident because somebody's investing in them? And you see them when we've seen people come out of workshops. They go, oh, bit taller, bit shoulders back, and they want to ring you and tell you their successes.
Well, I think with a lot of these, I think when we talk about reluctant training agency owners, directors, I think when they do think about training, they think of it as something highly technical.
Yes.
Right. You're going to learn how to comply with AML. You're going to learn how to deliver the Renters' Rights Act. It's a very technical, school, like, here are the facts you will learn so that you have the knowledge to be compliant, rather than
it's for me,
this
it's
is
all
how
about
you
personal
give a better
development.
experience.
It's
This
about
is
development,
how you
about
buy
growth.
people into the business. This is how you convey
Yeah.
the value of what you do, rather than transactionally we sell houses.
Absolutely.
Now, this is funny enough, because we haven't directly got into it, but this is kind of why we developed the leadership program with WIEA. Because what we realised was that women think about this role of leading and managing and encouraging their team. They take it very seriously. And I don't mean only women do it, but lots of women won't put themselves forward for a position they don't think they qualify for.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's quite well documented, right?
Yeah.
Women won't often put themselves forward unless they feel they meet 90% of the criteria. And on the flip side, us blokes, if we get 10 or 20%, I mean, it's a shoo-in, right?
Yeah. And there's a winging it. And there's a winging it and a believing that they can, no matter what. And there's an anxiety about what if I don't and what if I can't, and not wanting to wing it because it's too much. And some women are leaving their kids behind for longer periods. And there's so much. It's a huge investment in their future. So it's easier for them to say no to these positions than it is. And they take this whole thing of training very seriously. But at the very same time, there are people making decisions quite often for them as to whether or not they've got it, whether they see something in them, and whether they're looking and saying, I don't see any ambition from that woman, and actually she's screaming inside going, I really want to. So we wanted to encourage people to be able to make a decision on some affordable training where all they needed to do was take a day off, that they could come and spend a day with us with like-minded other people in a very safe space where they could say whatever was in their heads and not have it as a power competition. I'm being careful. Actually, no, I'm going to say as a willy waving exercise, because the vulnerability in our room is very important. And you talked earlier about men and mixed training and all this stuff. Women wouldn't be that honest in the room, and men definitely wouldn't be as honest in the room.
Well, the WIEA movement has done what it's done. I think even if you forget the later iteration of it with the conference and everything else, when you look at what it fundamentally sits on, which is that Facebook WhatsApp group, that safe space for women to ask the questions that they
They don't want to ask a stupid question, which goes back to, that whole thing. There's no such thing as a stupid question, but there's people who, when they go and ask it, they go,
just so much thing as an arsehole to my answer.
Yeah, I haven't got time to go through this now. Look it up. Here's a website. Check it out. Rather than just explain things in simple ways. So training for me has got to stop being something that you have to do and something that you get to do, want to do.
But I think also as well, don't frame it in like in my mind, I think a lot of agents see it as like a property mark course, a technical and no dissing to property mark courses. We do need technical knowledge. That is absolutely. And I think particularly so in lettings, that is incredibly important. But like we talked on the soft skills, as we call them, the ability to, finding people's joy at work, finding what genuinely makes people happy. Because guess what? If they actually come in and like what they do, they tend to have quite a bit more fun doing it, and they tend to step up to do other things, and they have ideas because they're passionate about what they're involved in. And, and I think it, again, we were talking about agents who I find it fascinating, this kind of, there is a lot of our industry that seems to be on this constant brink of struggle. And we've seen it recently with Taylor Begbie's report of businesses in distress being more than ever before. And, the Renters' Rights Act will have added fuel to the fire with that, alongside all the cost increases and everything else. But again, it's that old thing of, was it the definition of madness is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result?
Yeah.
And I think there are so many agents out there that are so frozen in the fact that this is how we've done, this is how we've always done it. You know, you make 200 calls a day to book 8 viewings a day to get 3 offers to get 1 sale. And as long as that happens, you know, we will keep marching forward. We will keep our doors open. In the tough times, that will just about get us through the darkness, and in the good times we'll be fine.
Yeah, and you'll keep riding that roller coaster. That if you've been in the industry
you're
long
always-
enough, you'll know it'll go up, it'll go down, but you'll keep
And
riding
you're
it.
constantly at the mercy of what the market
Absolutely.
does. You have no control over the future of your business.
And I think a lot of the workshops I do are very collaborative. They're about having fun. If you have fun, people learn, people remember. So I use Lego, I use flip charts and pens and post-its and whatever we need to do to make a point. And we have a fun, but there's a serious element to it. It's not death by PowerPoint. It's about, what do you need? What do you need to help you be stronger, better, more confident, whatever that is? And that's a starting point. And we built the stuff that we built around the leadership was about confidence and building it from there. And we'll continue to build that. And the things that we're working on, we'll continue to build around those things.
This is interesting. I think confidence is a really interesting one. I think if we come back to the fact that quite a lot of people fall into agency, and quite often you have this story of, oh, well, I didn't do well at school. I wasn't very academic. You know, I fell into it. And I think that confidence thing is the thing that underpins all of that. And I think that's where it gets scary. You learn to do something a certain way, and anything outside of that feels terrifying, feels utterly rogue. And I think also another tendency in our industry is we try to be everything to everyone.
Yes.
We try to be an agency that will pick up the 1-bed council flat round the corner, but also the 5-bed millionaire's mansion round the house. And you want to be, you know, cheapest fee for one, but you want to be a 2% sole agency fee with add-ons for the other. And you want to offer mortgages and financial services and furniture bolt-ons and all this sort of stuff. And I remember when we started Base, we felt like that was the impression. We wanted to convey that we were a small independent and it was all about service, but we felt this need to try and convey that we were experts at everything. So again, our website was sales and lettings and property management, but also financial services. We didn't have a financial services arm. Investment consultancy. What a load of waffly bollocks. You know, we had so many pages, furniture, you know, interior design services, all this, we wrapped it all up. And I think what's been fascinating for us is over the years, as we've matured, we've gone, we don't fucking do that.
No.
We don't do that. We're not even going to pretend to be good at that. Like, we've got a couple of good contacts. We've got someone else. We'll refer them over. But otherwise, you know, we get to know people in the industry. Someone needs a really good chartered surveyor. We'll put the feelers out. Guys, anyone know a good chartered surveyor in St John's Wood or wherever it is, you know? But I think we kind of learned over time, rather than trying to give this impression of being, like you said, again, all things to everyone, is peeling those layers back. And I think what was really interesting for us recently, about 6 months ago, we did the big kind of company audit with Simon and Unchained of Base. And that was fascinating because it told us things that I think we kind of knew, but at the same time, we kind of talked ourselves out of. So for us, in terms of who our client base is and where we sit in the market, both of those came back as prime, which is fascinating because we've never considered ourselves a prime agent. We've always considered ourselves a mid-market agent, high service level. But if you'd asked me and Anne, we were always very much mid-market. But if you look at the data Simon came back with of the profiles of our clients and where our properties sit in the overall UK market, it's top 5%, probably even higher. I think it was top 2% on client profiles. And it's fascinating how it reiterates yourself. But I think much like, and we're going to go into this in a minute, finding your tribe of people that you work with and hang out with, I think one of the biggest revelations we've had is that applies to your clients as well.
Yes.
You can't be all things to everyone because you will convince someone to come on board and your purposes, your methodology are not aligned. You're going to piss each other off or disappoint one another in one way, shape or form. And it's just generally not going to be fun for one, or if you're really unlucky, both of you. One of our biggest things is something we've talked about a lot before, but I think when we were about 10 years old, we had this kind of epiphany moment where we had 6, 7, 8 clients who took up a third of our time. And interestingly, they were typically clients on the lowest fees who had been with us from the start. So we always felt that loyalty to them, that we owed them something. But one of the biggest psychological shifts for us was Anne and I sitting down and going, so these 8 landlords, not only are they a massive drain of resource, anytime any of our team has to talk to them, they're a fun sponge. It doesn't matter how good a mood our team member goes on to that call, they come off and they're ready to go and have 5 tequila shots. And you know. And one of the best things we ever did was Anne and I, you know, have the guts to go, do you know what? It's time to sever ties. And we wrote a very polite but very definitive email to those 7 or 8 clients going, thank you ever so much for your loyal custom. You know, we kept it very polite and grateful and appreciative. But we feel like our paths have digressed over the years, and what you guys want from an agent and what we want to deliver as an agency are aligned, and thank you very much for your loyal custom, but at the end of this tenancy, that will be the end of it. 4 of them, we probably got literally a one-liner of like, fine, literally, like that was it, nothing. The other 4, I mean, 2 of them were on the phone within 90 seconds of that email landing in their inbox. What have I done? What do you mean? What do you mean you're not going to look after my property anymore? And they have since become some of our best clients.
Yes.
And once in a while, they do stray back onto the old path. You're doing it again. And they've given us permission to call them out, which again is lovely, because again, it shows that trust with one another.
Yeah.
But from that moment, I think that was a real moment for me and Anne where we truly felt like we had established our value. You know, we'd found that thing of going, no, do you know what? We are good at what we do. We do give a very good service. We are worth what we ask to be paid. And if none of that aligns with you, do you know what? That's fine. Yeah. That's absolutely fine. And we've had clients with us over the years who've gone, oh, you know, we've been checking things and so's offered to do it for 3% less. If you match, we'll stay with you. No. And I love those conversations because we're very quick to go, no, you're right. Thanks. Best of luck.
Yeah. Off you go.
Oh, sorry, what?
Yeah,
I love it.
absolutely.
I didn't mean we definitely leave it. No, that's fine. You know, look, that's like 20% less than we charge you. You know, if you need the margins, absolutely fine. But we don't cut our service and we don't cut our fees. So, you know, and we've had clients that have left and 3 months later gone, I get what you paid. I get what you charged, what you paid for it. I remember in the early days of Purple Bricks when we were all panicking, when Purple Bricks first launched, and we were all panicking about what that meant to the market. And I remember a client, a let-only client actually, who'd been with us for, I don't know, 5-10 years around then. And again, exactly, came to us and said, look, they're going to do it for like 30% less. We were like, cool. Off you go. Yeah, that's fine. No problem. But again, it was, you know, they did the deal. Oh, if you've got details for a gas engineer, and if you've got details for this, you've got details for that, and I'd go, do you know what? I'm not going to give them over the phone, but we've provided you with documents throughout your time with us. If you go back through your records, you'll find invoices, and on those invoices will be the details of the contractors we use. So feel free to reach out to them, but with the greatest of respect, you chose to leave our service, so crack on. And yeah, indeed, that was the only property we ever lost to Purple Bricks, and a year later they were back.
It's having that confidence to articulate and knowing your products and knowing what you do and knowing what you say. And this is to your point of having difficult conversations. It's tackling those deemed difficult conversations that aren't difficult if you actually know what you want to say to somebody. And
without being pissy
say, absolutely,
as well, without defaulting to that. Oh yeah, but they're shysters. Yeah. Oh yeah, but
no, not at all.
They talk a good game, but they're actually
no. You don't have to knock somebody else. No. It's about you. If you believe in you and what you do, then that's enough, isn't it?
I think it's funny because I commented as we came in today about how many esters you've got, right? No, but there's a really interesting thing. 5-star reviews are great, but it's the missing reviews that tell us where we could do better. It's where a customer hasn't given us any rating, and you give them a call and say, I'm not being funny, and they go,
fair enough, you don't want to put it on record.
I know, we don't want to have a written record of it, but just go, what would have made it a 5?
Yeah.
And they go, actually, well, you didn't do this, and you were late on this occasion, and you didn't call us back, and we can't give it to you. Now, we're not going to damage your reputation by putting this online, but you're asking me directly. And it's having the humility and the curiosity to wonder why you don't, because reviews are still only representing about 20% of what your tribe is really thinking.
Yeah.
So for us, I mean, we're proud of what we do.
And it's the psychology of self-validation, right? People want to feel like they've spent money on a good course or a good agent. Or...
They do, but we learn more from the customers that go, this was great. But actually, because then we know how to improve. Perfection's a moving target. And if we produce the same old... Joe knows how rattled I am when I get criticism. I pretty much fall apart. I go into a dark room and start going, is it me? And is it time for me to hang up?
And then I sit and wait and listen.
But the self-reflection is really important. You cannot go around thinking, I'm the queen of training. This is what I do. You're so lucky to have me, darling, all of the time. Because sometimes they wish they hadn't got me. So that reflection, I don't think that we do enough of that in agency, to be curious about the people that didn't rate us, about the people who we actually need to know, what could we do better? We actually need to know why somebody didn't come. I had a great customer.
Or why did someone just give you 5 stars but write no words?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
See, that's another interesting one. So I think sometimes you get people go, oh yeah, they were good enough. And I don't want to give them bad stars. I'll give them 5 stars, but they don't write a single word.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I learned a lot from it was an exercise, and I know they won't mind me saying this because this is Romans before they became part of LRG. And if we didn't win an instruction, we didn't ask the valuer why we lost it. We rang the client and we said, what was it about the company you've chosen that made them stand head and shoulders above the rest? And that feedback gave us far more than the valuer saying the customer was deluded, stupid.
Well, because obviously the valuer exactly is going to be very defensive, doesn't want to be perceived at not being good at their job.
Yeah, all the other agents have dropped their trousers for, it's all, everyone's got cheap fees, Claire. This client would say, well, actually, your valuer was late.
Yeah.
Or actually, your valuer was very arrogant.
Yeah.
Your valuer didn't stop talking and didn't listen to what we have to say. And that feedback enabled us to provide far better, let's go back to this training, than anything that the valuer could say, I just need more training on how to win more instructions. Yeah. But they didn't know but you need to know why you're losing. Yes. You need to know why you lose business. And I'd stand up in rooms and I'd say, I don't want to hear why you're the best. I want to hear why you lose business. Yeah. And it can't be cheap fees, and it can't be the other agent overvaluing.
Can't be overvaluing,
Because guess what? I've been in this industry since the 80s, and it's...
Those problems have always been around.
Yeah.
And yet other agents still succeed.
Yeah, exactly. So come up with something novel, and I might listen. But you've got to understand why you lose.
Yeah.
Not the business loses, you lose.
And again, it's a large part of that is understanding who you are, right? Who you are as an agency, where you sit in the market, who you're going to appeal to. I think we coined a phrase about base probably about 10 years ago now, and we referred to ourselves as a landlord's first choice second agent.
Love that. Love that.
Because that's what we've noticed is a huge pattern with our clients, is that often with landlords, and because a lot of landlords are still currently accidental landlords or whatever you want to refer to it, that first agency instruction happens for a myriad of reasons, but typically there's very little research that sits behind it. It's, did that letter or canvas flyer happen to land on the morning you were talking about it, or does your mate work there, or are there boards on the street, or did a Foxton's Mini pull up on the, whatever it was, or who was offering the cheapest fee, or who gave you the highest rent, whatever those initial impulses are that drive that transaction. We're not often in that mix because we don't do a lot of advertising. We don't put ourselves out in a lot of channels to really scoop up necessarily much of that. And again, we find because of the noise in that space, and it's a fairly uninformed marketplace, that a lot of what we're trying to convey isn't understood anyway. But when things go wrong for a landlord from a letting agent perspective, they tend to go really bloody wrong. And what you then see is a dramatic shift in that person's attitude of who's going to look after that property. Because whether it's rent arrears, or the property's got trashed, or they're not letting, or whatever those issues are, they suddenly realise that shock horror, not every agent does the same job in the same way to the same standard. And that also, you know, those annoying questions that certain agents had. I mean, it's one thing I always find fascinating when we take a lot of these landlords on is some particularly early doors in that process, when they decide to come on board with us, we'll be doing the onboarding process. They'll be like, but why are you asking for this? You've asked for this, 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 and this. We've worked with 4 agents and not a single one of them has asked for any of those documents. And we're like, yet asking us why we're asking for it is not the question you should be asking. Yes. You should be going back to those 4 agencies and asking for a rebate on your fees, because without those documents in place, if this had gone to court, you would have been stuffed.
Mm-hmm.
We're not asking, we're not asking anything that should have been asked. Every agent should have asked. But it's that fascinating journey and the psychology behind landlords in that position, or owners as we prefer to call them. And their attitude towards then how they identify an agent. You know, is it, because we look after a lot of clients' former homes, so there's that personal thing. Mm-hmm. It's less about the return, it's more about, are they going to put someone nice in your property who's going to look after their home?
Yeah, partners for life. You're a business partner for life, aren't you? It's a long-term relationship. It's not a one-night stand, and it's really important that you think about it, because you're going to be together for a while. You don't want to be chopping and changing, and you want to be able to look every year and say, "I'm so glad, happy anniversary. I'm so glad I met you." That's what it should be. Yeah. But you know, the tribe thing is right. You can't be all things to all people, and you can only be of value to somebody who sees value in what you do.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, you're not going to convince anyone. So that's a nice thing. Bring it back onto the tribe. I did want to come back to this. So you know, we've talked about finding your tribe, I think, at work, but also with your client base. But I have adored this blossoming fabulousness that a lot of us have got to witness, with you two kind of stumbling into this fabulous kind of friendship and, you know, business partnership, or whatever you want to kind of encapsulate it as. But can you share with us a little bit more about how that kind of came across?
Shall I start? Well, actually, weirdly enough, Joe kind of found me on LinkedIn and said, I think you and I both do something similar. And to begin with, I was a bit sceptical, because I could see that she dabbled in purple bricks and she'd also had something to do with Connells, and I was thinking, I'm not sure.
She did. No, seriously. We had a Teams call quite a long time ago. Yeah. And really, she a
bit frosty.
I was.
Well, she spoke to me, we talked, and that was it. That was it for quite a while, actually.
Yeah. And then when we started, Joe got back in touch and said that she loved the stuff I'd done with Chris Watkin, which you know about, and various other things. And we agreed to meet, I think it was at the Strand Palace Hotel the night before the first event. And we just didn't stop talking. Then after that event...
I find that shocking to hear. I am surprised and appalled at this news.
I found out that Joe does, which is great, because this is where we complement each other. Joe specialises in things that I don't, and I think brings something to the dynamic.
Like all good partnerships. Yes. You don't need to sit with someone who's exactly the same.
Exactly. And then Kate Faulkner had spoken to me and said, you've created this leadership event at WIEA, and then this light bulb went on, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if we did leadership training for women who want it but can't get it or can't afford it? So the only person I could think of that would fit in that category and work as a double act with me was Joe. So we sat down and thought about it, and were we ready to do it for nothing, which is what we did to begin with. We did it for absolutely nothing, to prove the concept worked. And we had...
Was that funded by Rightmove at that time?
Rightmove came straight in, actually. Rightmove came straight in and said, we love the idea of this, will help. And the major funding came in straight after that. But initially, just to prove that we could make a difference to a handful of women.
And proof of concept.
And proof of concept. Rightmove got behind and provided Milton Keynes.
And I imagine for you guys as well, just... is this genuinely something we want to deliver?
Ellie Hall, Property Franchise Group, she was on the board at the time. She said, I'm going to come and support you. So you've got another board member. I was on the board anyway. But I think there were quite a few people sceptical, thinking, I don't know what this is all about. And literally, as soon as we started working together, I'm going to let Joe comment in a minute about this, because I'm blowing my own trumpet. But we've had the best time, haven't we? We just really have. And I think the combination of... my squirrel hunting behind there, and Joe's calmer exterior. I will leave you to say more about that.
I don't actually think I really need to say much, do I? Because it's quite obvious.
As often with Anne following me in such scenarios.
But you know what? It's been the best 2+ years since I first met Claire, and she said something to me one night over a pizza. You were talking about identifying your clients and where you were, and she said to me, we were having a pizza, and she said, "You need to be really out there about what you do best." Because I did loads of stuff. I've done lots of consultancy over the 11 years, lots of different things. And I realised that actually what I really enjoy doing the most is helping people and teams to be better. And you made me sit there and go, what do you actually do? And actually what I really do, and I think I can say this now, is actually what I do really well is help teams to get better and leaders to get better. But that's the beauty of working with Claire. So while she didn't want to work with me, clearly a few years ago.
It's much easier to lift someone else up, isn't it, than to lift yourself up.
Absolutely.
Lift yourself up. I think it's much easier to see someone else's strengths.
I'm going to qualify my caution, and I think we can just share it for now. I think Joe and I both know people that have made friends with us to take something from us. So, in other words, rather than collaborate and to give something, they see that we've got something.
It was a relationship of opportunity.
Yeah, so they'll start saying, if you'd like to send anybody my way, or I don't know how you find clients, but I'm quite sure that I could probably help them too.
Yeah, if you could introduce me to such and such, I'm sure I could get you into...
Yes. Or you please tag me in with all of the and you realise that people aren't making friends with you because they want to know about you. They're making friends because they think you've got something for them.
It's an opportunity.
Yeah, and it's a narcissistic approach.
Yeah.
Now I didn't know that Joe was not, but I was just, it had taken me so long to build up my client base, and I was guarded and a bit vulnerable from coming out of the previous job with a settlement agreement, which that's something else we've got in common, and just feeling like a bit jangly. So when somebody says, "Hi, can we chat?" I was thinking, "You're not having my client."
Yeah.
It's that kind of.
Whereas it never entered.
It's one of those podcasts.
Never entered my head that's why I wanted to connect with Claire, because that isn't.
But it is that.
Really isn't who I am. Yeah.
And I think interesting. I think there's a really interesting parallel to that. And I think there's been a big shift in the agency industry in that respect. Because I think you go back 10 years plus and you go to a lot of these conferences, awards and everything else, and you would talk to other agents and it was bullshit o'clock. It was every agent was smashing it out the park, was doing better than ever, was blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. You know, everyone was bigging it up, puffing their chest out, trying to be the biggest cock on the walk, so to speak.
Yeah.
I never went to these things.
But what is nice
and so I didn't know people.
And again, it's not everyone, but there is that growing community of agents where that's all gone. We can, with our tribe, we can be honest and be like, it's been a really shit quarter. Or it's been really hard. I remember there's a really good WhatsApp group I'm in called the Lettings Wizards. So there's a group of very well-known individuals in there, and we have a lot of fun, but it's a really good place to turn to. And I remember we were having a really torrid time about 18 months ago with the team. They were miserable and we couldn't figure out why. And a lot of the people in the group are iconic team leaders. They are the standard that gets held up so often of people who run incredible businesses with tons of culture, training, everything else in there. And I was terrified about sharing this within the group. So I was like, they're all my mates, but they're all so fucking good at this stuff. I was like, and I remember posting there being like, so be kind. I was like, but we're having a really shit time at the moment. I was like, Anne and I are really pulling our hair out. And it was so reassuring to have almost everyone in that group go, oh, snap. Oh, thank fuck someone said it. And it's, and I think that 10 years ago in our industry, I don't think would have happened. And look, there is still bravado. We know that. And we've already talked about the segments of our industry that aren't evolving for whatever reason. But I think you look at the top 20%, let's be generous. You look at the top 20% of the industry, and a lot of that has gone. And of course, you're not going to share your biggest breakthrough with your competitor down the road because we're not idiots, but it is a big industry. You know, what a successful 3-branch agent in London finds works for their business could be really useful for a successful 5-branch in Birmingham.
Yeah.
And there is no competitive.
I actually think it was Do It For Dom that changed it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That we all got together for a charity where egos were left behind.
Yeah.
We hurled ourselves down watery slopes. We walked miles.
I escaped the Snowden one, thank Christ.
We got completely wasted at the end of the evening. We sat around campfires, and we just had a brilliant time collaborating and enjoying and helping. And actually what we were showing was the industry can do some amazing things together in a really kind way with a central focus. And I think that's where it started.
Yeah, and I think a lot of interesting conversations happened on those events.
100%. So that's where I think we started to become more philanthropic. But there are still people, and Joe and I both meet them regularly, who want to be friends with us, to have a piece of us, and they want to take, and it's not pleasant when it happens, and we have to be just a bit.
I think you find you get slightly better at spotting them though.
Yeah.
I find I get, because I think like you go, I'm willing to give. You know, I've always been give it. If it doesn't come back, so be it. But I would 9 times out of 10 hate myself for not sharing something or not helping someone, and I don't do it to get something back. But if something comes back down the line, then fantastic, what a lovely reward. But I think you do get better at identifying the less genuine, shall we say? It's asks for requests for help or friendship or partnerships, camaraderie, or however you want to frame it.
So again, I think going back, Joe and I both. Well, I'm the older one, obviously. I'm 65 this year. This coming month. Joe is so much younger than me.
Not so much, but
we are very comfortable as a pair of old trainers should be, right? But we genuinely have got very similar backgrounds. We've both had previous marriages that didn't go well. We both ended up limping and a bit careful about relationships, both looking after boys as mums. We've been round the thing. We've seen some appalling behaviour, but we've also seen some great behaviour. We know what we value in friendship. In fact, our values are so aligned. So it's very natural to be a friend of Joe's. It feels like I'm in the right place, and she is without a doubt the kindest, loveliest person I have ever met.
And I think that's the thing. You can have different personality traits, but your core values have to be aligned. And I see so much of me and Anne in you two, this balance of the yin and the yang of your mindset and what you bring to the workplace in inverted commas, but also your attitudes towards things, but they still are grounded in this fundamental, you know, Anne and I formed this very early bond over this desire to deliver a great experience. You know, the company we met, we worked, that's where we formed this really strong partnership, but it was all underpinned by these values of, we were really good and we did a lot of deals, but that wasn't why we were good at it. We didn't care about the deal. We cared about looking after a landlord and finding a tenant a home, you know, finding a renter a home. And, you know, we always, because we met working at a company that was highly unscrupulous and was actually a criminal enterprise fronting as an agency, what we kind of learned with that, as kind of the horrors of the reality of what had been hidden from us kind of emerged as we decided to make this move, was that if you can treat clients that shit, like we would have clients call up. I remember I took over as branch manager for about 3 or 4 months within the business, and we would have landlords call up. I would call a landlord up going, "Oh, great news, we've got an offer." And they go, "Oh, thanks for calling, that's fantastic news. By the way, while I've got you on the phone, any idea where I'm going to get the last 6 months of rent? Because I have been chasing it." And I'd be like, I beg, sorry, last 6 weeks of rent? No, last 6 months of rent. Can't get a word from the accounts. You have been chasing it. Like, fantastic. You know, so delighted you found me a new tenant. And I'm sat there thinking, you're being way too polite. I was like, if someone called me up and owed me like 15 grand, I was like, I've got a new deal. You know, and I would say to people, do you know what? let's do the deal, but we'll make it conditional that the tenancy can only be finalised if your arrears are settled first. Would you do that for me? Was that? Yes, I would absolutely do that for you. And we had this revelation that if that is how people react when you treat them like shit, what would people react like if you genuinely give a shit, if you genuinely look after people and care? And that's always really been the underpinning of what we've done. And I think we've kind of always known that get that bit right and the rest you can figure out. You can tweak a business plan, you can rake in your spending, you can add a service, cut a service, whatever it is you do to make the business fully work. But if you underpin it with that, and again, it came back to this thing of core values. Anne and I, fundamentally, we really love people. We love meeting and learning and hearing about people and their stories. And we like making people happy.
Yeah.
And then, that's bring the joy, people, finding people at home, agents who treat tenants like some inconvenience that is just something that gets in the way of someone signing a tenancy agreement and paying them a fee. You can't get past that. And again, it's why we've steered away from a lot of people within the industry, because there is still, you walk into half the offices in this country and you will hear, bloody tenant on the phone again.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Customer day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
This isn't someone bugging you.
No.
They're like, for us, like our average tenant spending £30,000 a year in rent. Guess what, mate? If I was paying £2,500 a month for any service, I would be picking up that phone being like, what do you mean my leaking sink is still not been fixed after 3 weeks?
It's less than a hotel room, right? Sorry, more than a hotel room.
Yeah.
And the thing is that most tenants are paying more than the actual estate agent themselves paying on their mortgage.
Yeah.
And I do find, but I actually rented a property. This is something else that we talked about, was when we left our respective other halves, right? And I went into rented, and the letting agency, a prime letting agency in Oxford, kept looking at me as if, oh, bless, you can't afford a house on your own, can you? I was paying maintenance to my ex. Right, and they looked at me as if, you just don't understand, do you? When you see all the time, you'll just have to wait. And everything was about, you'll have to wait, you'll have to.
You're just a tenant.
But the funniest thing was...
Just a tenant. I mean, that's a fascinating psychology.
Now, this was quite funny, because what they didn't realise was, at the time, I was also a judge with Peter Knight on the Estate Agents of the Year Award, and who should have entered it that year?
Shock of all shocks. Contrary to what they've written on their submission, I actually experienced this firsthand and can tell you 80% of that is
what goes around comes around.
Indeed.
So, but no, going back to our friendship, it's special, isn't it? It's really, I'm your special friend.
You are my very special friend.
Of that, there is no question, Claire.
And I have learnt so much about myself working with you as well. The very first time I worked with Claire, I realised that there was no point having an agenda, a script, a plan, because it all went out the fucking window. And there was a room full of people who had paid to come to a training session. And
I'm pretty sure earlier in your WIEA speech, you were just like, right, off script already.
God. And I just realised, so I have, do you know what?
I'm still obsessed with that photo of you two ladies of the pink Batman and Catwoman in the Cadillac. I still think that's the best picture ever.
It's allowed me to be the person I really am working with Claire.
Isn't that
that's
amazing?
been in a corporate environment for such a long time. I suppressed. I probably suppressed for a long, long time. Working on my own.
And it's a very common
fine.
story, right? In corporate.
But actually getting on that stage and being able to be a bit wacky and a bit the person that really I enjoy being has been so much of a revelation. And there's a load more to come on that. But yeah, it's great fun. It really
it's a relief to be your authentic self, isn't it?
In that environment, in my workshops and working one-to-one with clients has been fine because it's me.
Yeah.
But to stand on a stage and go, I can actually strut around here and actually be fun, and people don't walk out, and if they do, so be it.
Yeah. And now you're on the stage. That's the other big thing.
Yeah, now I'm on the stage. Yeah, I am.
Yeah.
But again, in a similar way with Anne, I've spent 22 years telling that woman she's the most incredible human being on the planet.
Absolutely.
And telling you going, I'm not sure I can do that. I'm like, you fucking shitting me. You could do that 2.5 times over and still do what you do the rest of the time. And that's that. I think I'm sure you guys find the same doing that for each other. That's been one of my joys working with Anne, is us pushing and nudging each other and holding each other to account.
Yes.
But in a good way, you can absolutely do this. You can, or equally, what the fuck's the worst going to happen?
I
Go and make an idiot of yourself.
I think, honestly, when you're talking about values, and we've been friends from pretty much the first time that we met, and I instantly found...
Which is weird because we're such withdrawn shy people. I don't make friends easily. I don't really talk to people much.
And Anne is another one. And it's like with Simon Edbetter and people like that. If I within the first 5 minutes, if I'm laughing, then I know we're going to be friends. And this was something my mum said once. She said, if I can't make somebody laugh in the first 5 minutes, we can never be friends.
Yeah.
It's never going to work.
It's not going to work.
My mum should have been a comedian on the stage with 100%, and I'm her daughter.
I'd love to meet you, but
she was more like Joan Grenfell, you know, that kind of dry humour. But she was right in that laughter levels everything. It takes egos out the room.
Yeah.
When you're laughing your head off, you can't be wondering whether your teeth look good in that shot or whether, you know, you just lose.
You can't laugh pretty.
No, you can't.
You can't laugh pretty, as I've learned many a time. Have you watched it? Have you watched me giggle again, Claire? Now look, we are running out of time, so I just want to very quickly touch, because you brought up Simon, the faculty.
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what this is, how it came about, and what you guys are kind of initially hoping to achieve.
Shall I start?
You can start. Yeah.
Okay, so I met Simon, weirdly enough, at some gathering, if you like.
That's very weird.
Yeah, I know. And we hit it off, and then arranged to go and have a coffee. And we were talking actually about leadership training for men, and how could that happen. And I actually jokingly said to Joe that I don't think it's something that two old ladies should go and get a load of blokes in and listen to us, because they'll behave as if we're school teachers, and it'll all get a bit silly. So that's where it started. And then Simon...
It's great to be held in such high esteem as
But you know what I mean?
I grounded her on this point, though.
But I just didn't think it was appropriate for two women to be training a room full of blokes. And
I mean, likewise, flip it the other way.
Absolutely. And then I looked at different ways. But what Simon was saying was, look, I know how to tell people to market.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to show people how to treat people and how to sell. Joe knows how to tell people to lead, and Danny really understands operations.
Yeah.
So what if we could produce value-packed days where you get all four disciplines in one day? Then people like yourself, even though you run a brilliant business, you would say this would be great. And if the peer-to-peer networking could be super powerful, then so that's what we want to do. We want to just bring in 4 experienced people in the industry that are specialists in one area.
Yeah.
So you get 4 specialists.
But again, you don't need 4 people all telling you different versions of the same thing, right?
No. And they're all linked. So if you set up your business, you need to lead a team. If you lead the team, you then need to lead the team to do certain behaviours. And those behaviours need to produce that, but you also need to measure your marketing. And ultimately, your operation has to be a profitable one. So when so wherever you go, if you go on a course on leadership, it still won't tell you how to sell.
Yeah.
If you go on a course on sales skills, it won't tell you how to measure the results and manage them, or how to market. And there's an awful lot of agents that don't really know about marketing. So we thought if we could combine it, then that's what we are.
Yeah, and then taking, I mean, there's a vast amount of data, isn't there, in the voice of the agent and the stuff that Simon's captured. And you mentioned data earlier, using data in what we do and why do people think like that? Why do people want to do that? How do I apply that? What does that really mean?
Because there is this perception, it's this soft, immeasurable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Art.
Yeah.
Right, and there is that element.
There is an element of data underneath that drives decisions in terms of culture and behaviours and everything else. And so how do we bring that together? And actually, I suppose we're all very similar in lots of different ways, but also we're all very different, and they complement what we're going to do and how we're going to, as Claire says, link the marketing to the ops, to the culture, to all of those things.
And I think fundamentally, if you sat all 4 of you down, regardless of size of agency, if the 4 of you were asked to describe what a good agency looks like, you would all give a fairly thematic, with your own viewpoint of expertise.
Absolutely.
But again, coming back to what we're talking about as individuals, but also as businesses, those core values, those core elements that sit behind an ethical, successful business.
And that goes back to the values.
Yeah.
So there are no egos in the room. Yeah. We haven't got one person that's a bigger star than the others. We all share the same values. We've all had the same opinion of what we want to do. We want it to be somewhere that people would be proud to have attended and proud to put their name to. But above all, we want to be proud that we did it, that we're really glad that we did it.
Yeah.
So I think that that's part of it. And ultimately, we just respect each other's expertise. You know, I love this. What you measure, you can manage.
Yeah.
If you don't have data, you don't know. And there's an awful lot of people running their businesses doing this.
I mean, look, I think, you know, we've mentioned them earlier. I think the shining example of that is Rightmove.
Mm.
You know, if we look at them as the Marmite of the industry, which they absolutely are, and my viewpoint on them is very well known, documented, but to a certain extent, I think some of the context of mine is lost, which is, you know, when we very passionately left 6 years ago, I wrote a very vocal piece on why we left, but ended it with a paragraph which was all about the fact that it was based in data. It was based, although it was a very emotive parting of ways, the underpinning of that was business driven and fact and data driven. I think the fascinating thing I find is the amount of agents at events, online, wherever, that you hear piss blood about Rightmove and how much they hate it and how much it is a drain on their business, but they could not for 1 second tell you the ROI. They could not tell you what they spend versus what it generates. You know, do they answer 95% of the leads, 100% of the leads? What is their conversion rate? You know, how are they leveraging that investment into their business to make sure they squeeze every penny?
Oh God,
and I always find that fascinating.
Yeah.
This is so important. And I'm really old, so when I went into agency, and I know Joe went in at a similar time, but a younger age, you understand. But
4 years is not really that much more. I'm going to get it in there.
but what I was going to say was that we had sticky photographs that we stuck on. We advertised in the press. The proportion of spend on newspaper advertising out of our revenue, out of our budget, was higher than
Massive.
most businesses are spending on Rightmove.
You talk to any agency
And no
owners that were
data.
around in newspaper time, and what you
No
spent on
intelligence.
that was mental.
And no intelligence to tell you how successful it was, how many people looked at that advert, the
Because
demographic.
other than your staff writing down, oh, I called you from your Evening Standard advert, whatever it was, there was no lead report and
No.
So this idea, this nostalgia, or this thing about it's just not fair, it is, to my mind, it's coming from a place of just not looking at where we've been, why it was developed, what it was developed to do, and what it delivers. Now, if you're in an industry or if you're in an area where a customer only understands Rightmove and they might know Zoopla and they may know the other portals on the market, CoStar, but the reality is that most people have grown up with Rightmove, and that's what they
Rightmove
see.
is a Google brand. It's a brand that's become a thing.
Yeah.
People refer to Rightmove, and they probably are talking half the time or part of the time about Zoopla or on the
Absolutely,
market,
yeah.
or even in agents' listings. It is the Hoover, the Google of property listings. You hear it on everything from topical panel shows to, you know.
So I'm not paid, neither is Joe, by Rightmove to say what people should do, but I think it's a be careful what you wish for, because when you start to take them on and put them in court to say deliver value, where will we go with this? Because
Yes.
it doesn't seem, rather than just looking and saying how can I get more value out of the investment that I make, we're almost looking and saying, no, you just drop your price.
Well, very interesting. I don't know if we'd qualified because I think we left too long ago, but very quickly after the announcement of the ambulance chasing Rightmove case, I had a couple of people reach out and be like, oh, are you going to be signing up? Because you were very vocal. I was like, absolutely not. Could not disagree with the case anymore. We made our business decision. My only regret is the data told me 3 years before that we should have left. And my only regret is that I didn't trust the bloody data and do it 3 years earlier. Because by now, 6 years, when we left, we were spending £2,000 a month. And by now, that would be at least £3,000 a month. You know, so you look at that over 6 years. My only regret is, you know, we probably saved roughly 150 grand in Rightmove fees in that time, that I haven't actually saved another 60,000 by trusting the data 3 years earlier to make a data-led thesion to step away.
But there's the difference. You're looking at data and you're analysing and you're making business decisions based on data. There are so many people that don't look at data, that
And again,
don't look at their ROI, that
almost
don't look at
every
what they're
conversation
doing.
I've had with an agent spitting blood about Rightmove is unable to answer even the simplest of questions of, you know, what does it bring in? What does it generate? What do you spend?
We have this conversation when we're in workshops training with what does it cost to run your business? What, you know, when we go to fees or whatever it is,
What's your
why are
break
you
even each
doing
month?
that? They don't know.
No.
Now, I obviously grew up in a very, very corporate, profit-driven business. So I was, you know, that's what I had to do. So when I talk to people in business and in workshops or in our stuff, is actually, what do you need to do? What does it mean? And then start to make some of those decisions based on your judgment about what you want to do.
I'm aware that somebody listening to this might start to think, right, I'm going to send an angry email to Claire saying, why aren't you supporting this? But I would also, and I have to say that without the support of Rightmove, we could never have done the leadership training.
No,
We
absolutely.
could not have done it. And their support meant everything to me. Now, I'm not saying that people's membership fees should pay for that, but there are reasons, commercial reasons, why I think that people should think carefully about the decisions that they make.
Yeah.
And I think there are also philanthropic reasons why Rightmove actually does some stuff behind the scenes that maybe people don't appreciate. But having said that, please don't shoot me for the message. I don't run an agency anymore,
No.
and I don't want to be. I don't want to be.
No, and look, and I think, you know, it's. I think a lot of the frustration that stems out Rightmove, and I know, you know, when we were with them, this was always the thing that angered me, or frustrated me, I would say, was that fact that, particularly as a smaller business, which, as we know, is the lion's share of Rightmove's business and income, you don't really have anyone to talk to. There is no, for one of the most expensive costs in your business, you know, when we left, it was pretty much the same as our rent, more or less. So that's a huge overhead. It was a very close second, taking away salaries. It was a very close second place to the biggest overhead in our business. Yet there was no one we could genuinely pick up a phone and have a genuine conversation with when the annual price increase came around. And let's be honest, it was exactly that. It was never a contract review, but again, it was framed as a contract review. But there was no negotiation to be had. It was, but again, coming back to our earlier conversation about, as agents, knowing what you're worth, knowing what your fees are. It all plays into the same thing. You know, if paying any portal is breaking your business, is it paying that's breaking the business? Or is it the fact that you're doing your service for half the fee you should actually be doing?
And are you utilising what's there and what the reports are and what the data is? I go back to data, but the reports within
And the
Rightmove,
training,
are the teams using those reports? Do they know how to access those? And I still don't think necessarily people do. And I've been out of agency a long time, but I do remember what we use them for, and I do remember how businesses are using those. It's being aware of all those things, isn't it? And then making informed decisions about whatever you want to do.
There's one thing with the faculty that I was asked this last week, and I just want to stress: the faculty is not just for estate agents and letting agents. It is for suppliers as well. On the understanding that when they come into the room, there's no sales and nobody takes the data away to do anything with it. They respect the privacy, but it is also for suppliers who would like some more information or looking for a different form of training. So we will have a date very shortly.
So look, if people want to find out more about the faculty, is it a matter of wait and see? There's more news coming soon, or is there a website yet or anything?
We've got a link for registering interest of the upcoming events.
Okay. Brilliant. So look, we're going to have to wrap it up now, guys, because we've this might be the longest, this might be the record, and I don't think any of us are really surprised there.
No, not really.
But this has been fabulous. It's been an absolute joy. Thanks for coming and chatting with the hairy old Viking this morning.
Oh, we've enjoyed it.
Hopefully Anne's here to say
hi. Don't
hi.
get that offer very often.
No. So look, if they want to register for more news about the faculty,
you can have a link so that you can.
Right.
You
so
can
when we share the podcast,
share that, there's a
look
link
on whatever social channel, look in the comments.
Yeah.
There'll be a link there. Equally, if they want to find out more about your individual training courses, or is that very much now just through the faculty? Or is
no. We're still very much doing stuff together, stuff on our own.
cytraining.works
and
impactctmd.com.
There we go. Fabulous.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Ladies, thank you. Guys, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you enjoyed that one. See you next time. Bye.